Whenever a new product comes on the market, we can think of it in terms of having a life cycle. And a lot of products follow this very same life cycle. So we can think of this life cycle, it's almost like the Roman Empire, where you have kind of a slow beginning, and then it gets more and more rapid. There's a rise, and then there's ultimate decline. So this life cycle has been kind of mapped out in terms of the effect on sales and profit in the industry or for that firm or for that product. So when we think about it, when we see the sales and the profit, we see that in the beginning stages, which we'll call the introduction, we see that actually there's not a lot of profit in the introduction stage. When we're in the intro, we were just growing sales. There's not a lot of firms yet in this industry, but sales are on the uptick. But we see that profits, that they're initially low, and actually we might have some losses even in the beginning as we incur product development costs and so forth. So profits are kind of low, but they are growing, and sales are growing. So that's kind of what we think of as the introduction stage. We've got high costs and few firms on the market. So we'll just go ahead and say so high costs, and we've got few firms. But what happens next? Well, if we think about it, now we've got this uptick because we're continuing to grow sales, but now profits are getting pretty high here. Matter of fact, we kind of reach an apex close to here. So profits get really high, and so what's happening? Well, the industry is growing. This is the growth stage. We've got both sales and profits are going up. But now here's what's happening. So as sales and profits go up, something else happens. So other firms take notice, right? So we started out kind of, we didn't have a lot of profit here, but now we got a lot of profit, and we get to hear other firms are saying, hey, look at all that profit that's being made. So they enter the market. Other firms enter the market, and they start kind of eating away some of our profits. So look at this. So even though sales, after this kind of growth phase, following that growth phase, even though sales continue to increase, they continue to go up, and they actually get to here, profits begin to decline. And why is that? Well, there's still people buying the product. I mean, the sales are still increasing. There's still demand, but what has happened is these other firms are entering the market, and they're eating away. They're eroding some of the market share, so they're eroding profit, and we call this the maturity stage. So this eroding profit as firms enter. So they've noticed that they're not stupid. They see that there's profit to be made, and they decide that they want to enter that industry. So the sales go up, and the profit starts to go down as the industry. Oh, that's a terrible line. Oh, I should be ashamed. See if I can do better. That's not much better, but it'll do. So that's the maturity stage. So now, well, what's left? Well, at some point here in our graph, sales start to decline. Sales start to decline, and then of course the profit continues to decline, and then so we come up with a very creative name for this stage. This is the declining stage. So when we think of this life cycle, now we can think of something like, let's think of a sample product here. Let's think of a smartphone. Let's think of a smartphone, and then let's look through our life cycle chart here and see what we can learn. So at some point, the smartphone was introduced to the market. It was a new thing, and there were some development costs associated with building the first smartphone and all that. And so initially, there was a lot of expense involved in building this. And there weren't many other firms. Maybe, one firm kind of had a monopoly. It was the only one producing it, and then a second firm. So just a few firms producing it here. So there's not a lot of profit, but it's growing, and there's some sales. But eventually, firms begin to recoup those initial product development costs as more and more people begin using this, and sales continue to increase, and then profits start going up, and profits get really high. And everybody else, all these other phone companies said, well, you know what, we want to make a smartphone. Look at all this profit that can be made. Let's get involved in that market. So then, consumers, they continue to buy the smartphone. So it just keeps going up. But now that all these other firms are competing with the smartphone, now there's 10, there's 15, there's 25 different options of smartphones. So what happens? Well, maybe now the firms have to start reducing their price, or maybe they just can't sell as many, or for whatever reason, their margins begin to decline. Even though the sales of kind of smartphones in general continue to increase, the profits in this industry so think of the profits as a pie. So there's this pie, and maybe it was just divided up two ways by two firms. But then now we have these other firms, they see all that profit, they see all this pie, and they say, oh, that looks nice, I want a piece of that pie. So then they come in and they say, okay, well, I'm going to take my share. And then next thing you know, here's the profit. And so, they compete with one another. Then they have to drop their prices. Then margins go down. And when margins go down, then profits go down. And consumers are capturing that because they're still buying this. So anyways, at some point, people say, they move on to something else other than the smartphone. Maybe they start buying tablets. Tablets come out. And they say, a smartphone is great and I need one, but I don't need two because I'm just going to have one smartphone. Instead of buying a new smartphone and upgrading, I'm going to buy a tablet. So there's some kind of, substitute or something else. And then now smartphone sales, they begin to decline. And then the profit continues to decline.